My cheating wife slept with her boss, so I divorced her quietly and watched her life fall apart. Every small action carries a trace. I just had to connect them. My name is Joseph. I'm 42 years old, and I'm a Brazilian jiu-jitsu coach. I used to fight professionally, back when my body could take the punishment, and my dreams were bigger than my bank account. These days, I teach kids and adults the art of leverage, patience, and never giving up. Skills that turned out to be more valuable than I ever imagined. For 15 years, I thought I had the perfect marriage with Amelie, even if it wasn't the perfect bank balance. She was everything I wasn't supposed to be able to keep. Smart, successful, ambitious, and beautiful in that polished way that comes from having the money to take care of yourself properly. Amelie worked at one of those corporate giants downtown, the kind of place where people wear expensive suits and talk about quarterly projections like they're discussing the weather. She made more in a month than I made in 3, but we'd found our rhythm. She was the breadwinner, I was the foundation. She brought home the money, I brought home the stability. She dealt with office politics and board meetings. I dealt with teaching teenage kids how to not get choked out. It worked for us, or at least I thought it did. We had one son together, Alex, who was 12 and absolutely obsessed with soccer. Amelie and I used to joke that we'd created the perfect balance. She had the drive to conquer the corporate world. I had the patience to deal with whatever life threw at us, and Alex had inherited the best of both. I thought we were a team, a real partnership where our different strengths made us stronger together. I thought what we had was built to last, even when money was tight, even when my career wasn't exactly what most people would call impressive. Looking back now, I realize that what I saw as balance, Amelie saw as imbalance. What I saw as complementary differences, she saw as me not measuring up. What I saw as a partnership, she saw as her carrying more than her fair share. But at the time, I was just grateful to have a woman who seemed to love me for who I was, calloused hands and modest income and all. The first sign that something was wrong came about 6 months ago. Amelie started working late more often, which wasn't unusual. Her job had always been demanding. But these weren't the stressed-out, exhausted late nights I was used to. She would come home energized, almost excited, like she'd been somewhere that made her happy instead of somewhere that drained her. She started talking about this new project she was working on, how challenging it was, how much she was learning from her colleagues. Then came the physical changes. Amelie had always been put together, but suddenly she was putting extra effort into her appearance. New clothes, a new hairstyle, a gym membership she actually used. She said she was feeling inspired to take better care of herself, that her success at work was motivating her to be better in all areas of her life. I was happy for her, proud even. I thought she was just hitting her stride professionally and personally. But then I started noticing the phone calls. Late-night conversations in the other room that she claimed were work emergencies. Text messages that made her smile in a way that had nothing to do with quarterly reports or client presentations. She became protective of her phone in a way she'd never been before, taking it with her to the bathroom, keeping it face down during dinner, making sure it was always within arm's reach. The breaking point came on a Tuesday night in March. I woke up around 2 a.m. to find Amelie's side of the bed empty. I could hear her voice from downstairs, soft and intimate in a way that made my stomach clench. I crept to the top of the stairs and listened as she talked to someone about missing them, about how hard it was to be away, about how she couldn't wait to see them again. The tone in her voice, tender, loving, excited, was a tone I hadn't heard directed at me in months. When she came back to bed 20 minutes later, I pretended to be asleep. She slipped under the covers carefully, trying not to wake me, and I could smell a faint trace of perfume that she only wore on special occasions. I lay there in the dark, listening to her breathe, knowing that whatever was happening, it wasn't just late-night work calls. The next day, while Amelie was at work and Alex was at school, I decided to do something I'd never thought I'd have to do. I went through her things. I checked her laptop, her dresser, anything that might give me a clue about what was going on. I felt like a stalker, like I was violating something sacred between us, but I needed to know if I was going crazy or if my instincts were right. That's when I found the second phone, hidden in a shoebox in the back of her closet. Underneath some old documents was a phone I'd never seen before. When I turned it on, there were dozens of text messages from someone saved in the contacts as Sarah. But the messages weren't from any Sarah I'd ever heard Amelie mention. They were love letters, essentially. Long, passionate texts about missing each other, about stolen moments together, about plans to meet up when their schedules allowed. Reading those messages felt like falling through ice. This wasn't just an emotional affair or a work crush that had gotten out of hand. This was a full relationship, complete with pet names and inside jokes and references to physical intimacy that made me sick to my stomach. The person she was texting, this Sarah, knew details about our home life, our son, our marriage that Amelie had obviously been sharing. They knew that I taught martial arts, that I made less money than she did, that she sometimes felt frustrated with our financial situation. But what really destroyed me was reading how she described our marriage to this person. According to the texts, I was holding her back. I was content with mediocrity while she was meant for bigger things. I was a good man, but not an ambitious one. Someone who was satisfied with a small life while she dreamed of something more exciting, more challenging, more worthy of her intelligence and success. I spent the entire day reading through months of messages, piecing together a relationship that had been going on right under my nose. Sarah was clearly someone she worked with, someone who understood the pressures of her job, someone who appreciated her drive and ambition in ways that I apparently didn't. They had been meeting during business trips, having long dinners after work meetings, finding ways to be alone together while maintaining the pretense of professional collaboration. But the most shocking discovery came when I decided to do a reverse phone lookup on Sarah's number. The phone was registered to Robert Chen, a senior manager at Amelie's company, a man, not a woman, a married man with 2 kids and a wife who posted family photos on social media every week. Amelie wasn't just having an affair, she was having an affair with a married colleague and going to elaborate lengths to hide it, even from her own phone records. She had been living a completely double life, playing the role of devoted wife and mother at home while building an entirely separate relationship with someone else. I put the phone back exactly where I found it and spent the rest of the day trying to figure out what to do with this information. Part of me wanted to confront her immediately, to demand explanations, to give her a chance to come clean and try to fix whatever had gone wrong in our marriage. But another part of me, the part that had learned patience and strategy from years of martial arts training, knew that I needed more information before I made any moves. So I started paying closer attention. I started noticing patterns in her behavior, her schedule, her moods. I started documenting the times she stayed late at work, the business trips that seemed to energize rather than exhaust her, the way she lit up when certain people texted her. I started taking photos of her text messages when she left her regular phone unattended, building a timeline of her deception. What I discovered over the next few weeks was that Amelie and Robert had been having an affair for over 8 months. It had started, according to their messages, during a business conference in Chicago, where they had been assigned to the same project team. What began as late-night work sessions had evolved into personal conversations, then emotional intimacy, then physical involvement. They had been meeting in hotels during business trips, having working lunches that lasted for hours, finding excuses to travel together for meetings that could have been handled remotely. Robert was everything I wasn't. He had an MBA from a prestigious university, made twice what Amelie made, wore expensive suits and drove a luxury car. He was sophisticated, well-traveled, the kind of man who could take her to expensive restaurants and buy her gifts that cost more than most people's monthly salary. He represented the life she thought she deserved, the life she felt she had sacrificed when she married a martial arts instructor instead of climbing the corporate ladder herself. But Robert was also a coward. Despite all his passion in their text messages, despite all his promises about how much he loved her and how unhappy he was in his own marriage, he had made it clear that he wasn't planning to leave his wife. He liked having Amelie as his escape, his exciting secret, but he wasn't willing to disrupt his comfortable life for her. He wanted to have his cake and eat it too, and Amelie was apparently willing to settle for being someone's side dish. Reading their messages was like watching someone systematically destroy everything I thought we had built together. Amelie complained to Robert about my lack of ambition, my satisfaction with a simple life, my inability to provide her with the lifestyle she wanted. She told him about feeling trapped in a marriage with someone who didn't understand her need for more money, more status, more excitement, more everything. But what hurt the most was reading about how she justified the affair to herself. She wasn't cheating, according to her messages to Robert. She was finally finding someone who appreciated her for who she really was. She wasn't betraying her marriage, she was discovering what love was supposed to feel like. She wasn't being selfish, she was finally putting her own happiness first after years of sacrificing for a family that didn't value her contributions. It was a masterpiece of self-deception, and it made me realize that the woman I thought I had married, the woman who valued honesty, loyalty, and partnership, had either never existed or had died somewhere along the way without me noticing. After a month of gathering evidence, I had enough proof to bury her in any divorce proceeding. Text messages, photos, hotel receipts she had charged to her company credit card, airline records that showed her traveling to cities where Robert was also traveling. I had documentation of her lies about where she was going and who she was with. I had recorded conversations where she made up elaborate stories about work emergencies that were actually romantic getaways, but I didn't confront her yet. Instead, I made an appointment with the best divorce lawyer in the city, a woman who specialized in high-asset divorces and had a reputation for protecting the interests of lower-earning spouses. I laid out everything I had discovered, showed her all the evidence I had collected, and asked her to help me figure out how to protect myself and my son from what was coming. The lawyer was impressed with how thorough I had been. She said most people came to her with suspicions and emotions, but I had come with documentation and proof. She explained that in our state, adultery was grounds for divorce and could affect both alimony and custody arrangements. She said that given Amelie's higher income and her documented infidelity, I would likely be awarded spousal support and could argue for primary custody of Alex, especially if I could prove that her affair had been affecting her ability to parent. We spent 2 hours going over strategy, timelines, and potential outcomes. She advised me to continue documenting Amelie's behavior for a few more weeks, to avoid any confrontation that might tip her off to what I knew, and to start quietly, preparing for the practical aspects of separation. Finding a new place to live, ensuring I had access to all our financial records, making sure I had copies of important documents. Walking out of that lawyer's office, I felt a strange mixture of sadness and relief. Sadness because I was finally accepting that my marriage was over, that the woman I loved had chosen someone else over our family. But relief because I finally had a plan, a way to protect myself and my son from the chaos that was coming. For the next 3 weeks, I lived a double life of my own. During the day, I taught classes, spent time with Alex, and played the role of the devoted husband who trusted his wife. Completely in the evenings, while Amelie was upstairs texting Robert or talking to him on her secret phone, I was downstairs preparing for war. I copied bank statements, photographed important documents, researched schools in case I needed to move Alex to a different district. I was methodical, patient, strategic, all the things that years of martial arts training had taught me to be. The final confrontation came on a Friday night in May. Amelie had told me she was going to be working late on a presentation for Monday, but I knew from reading her messages that she was actually meeting Robert at a hotel downtown. She had gotten sloppy, confident that I was too trusting or too naive to catch on to what she was doing. I waited until she got home at nearly midnight, obviously having been somewhere that made her happy. She was humming to herself as she got ready for bed, probably thinking about whatever romantic evening she had just shared with Robert. When she came into the bedroom, I was sitting on the edge of the bed with her secret phone in my hand. "We need to talk," I said quietly. The look on her face when she saw what I was holding was like watching someone realize they had just walked off a cliff. All the color drained from her cheeks, her eyes went wide, and her mouth opened like she was going to say something, but no words came out. "I know about Robert," I continued. "I know about the hotels, the business trips, the 8 months of lies. I know about everything." She tried to deny it at first, tried to claim that the phone wasn't hers, that I was misunderstanding what I had seen, but when I started reading some of her messages out loud, her own words, in her own voice, describing her relationship with Robert and her feelings about our marriage, she finally broke down and admitted everything. The discussion that ensued was an agonizing 3-hour ordeal, among the most painful moments I've ever endured. Amelie laid bare her heart, confessing her love for Robert, describing how he saw and cherished her in ways I never did. She spoke of feeling stifled in our marriage, bound to someone who in her eyes settled for a life of complacency, lacking the drive to match her aspirations or provide the future she envisioned. Her words cut deep as she admitted the guilt that gnawed at her, but she also revealed the exhilaration Robert brought into her life. A vibrancy that made her feel truly herself, as if she'd rediscovered a part of her soul she hadn't known was missing. Each revelation felt like a fresh wound, her honesty both raw and unrelenting. She described stolen moments with Robert, how his presence awakened a spark she'd long buried, how their conversations about dreams and ideas made her feel alive again. Yet, the weight of her betrayal hung between us, her remorse clashing with the passion she couldn't deny. I sat there, grappling with her words, seeing our marriage through her eyes, a cage of unfulfilled potential. The pain of her truth mingled with my own failures, leaving me to question how I'd missed her discontent, how I'd let her drift so far from me. She cried. She apologized. She begged me to understand that she had never meant for it to happen, that she still loved me but just wasn't in love with me anymore. She said she had been planning to ask for a separation, that she wanted to explore her relationship with Robert properly instead of sneaking around. She said she hoped we could work out some kind of arrangement that would be best for Alex, that we could remain friends for his sake. What she didn't expect was for me to hand her a manila envelope containing divorce papers that had already been filed with the court. "I'm not interested in separation," I told her. "I'm not interested in working things out. I'm not interested in remaining friends. You made your choice when you decided to have an affair instead of talking to me about whatever problems you thought we had. Now I'm making mine." The next few months were a legal battle that Amelie was completely unprepared for. She had assumed that I would be reasonable, that I would accept whatever terms she offered. that I would prioritize keeping things civil over fighting for what I deserved. She had underestimated me the same way she had underestimated our marriage, by assuming that quiet meant weak, that patient meant passive, that loyal meant stupid. My lawyer used every piece of evidence I had collected to build a case that painted Amelie as an unfit mother who had prioritized her affair over her family responsibilities. We showed the court her secret phone, her lies about business trips, her use of company resources to facilitate her relationship with Robert. We demonstrated that she had been living a double life for months, deceiving not just her husband but also her son, who had no idea why his mother was suddenly working so many late nights and taking so many trips. The final divorce decree awarded me primary custody of Alex, with Amelie getting every other weekend and alternating holidays. Because of her higher income and her documented infidelity, she was ordered to pay me spousal support and child support that totaled more than half her monthly salary. She was also required to maintain life insurance policies naming Alex as the beneficiary and to contribute to a college fund that I controlled. But the financial arrangements were nothing compared to what the divorce did to the rest of her life. Her affair with Robert became public knowledge during the proceedings, and both of them faced professional consequences at their company. Robert's wife filed for divorce and took him for everything he was worth, while his reputation in their industry was damaged beyond repair. He ended up having to take a lower-paying job at a smaller company, and his own custody arrangements with his children were affected by his adultery. As for Amelie and Robert's relationship, it didn't survive the transition from exciting secret affair to complicated real-world situation. When they no longer had the thrill of sneaking around, when they had to deal with the practical consequences of their choices, when they had to face the judgment of their children and families and colleagues, the magic seemed to fade pretty quickly. Robert decided that Amelie was too much drama for his newly complicated life, and Amelie discovered that being someone's mistress was a lot more exciting than being someone's ex-wife with a damaged reputation. Today, 2 years after the divorce was finalized, I'm living in a small house across town with Alex, who has adjusted to our new life better than I ever expected. He sees his mother every other weekend, but he's made it clear that he's happier living with me full-time. He likes the stability, the honesty, the fact that he doesn't have to wonder if I'm where I say I'm going to be or if I'm telling him the truth about what's happening in our family. I'm still teaching martial arts, but I've expanded my business to include private lessons and online coaching. The spousal support from Amelie has allowed me to invest in better equipment and marketing, and my reputation in the community has grown significantly since the divorce. Ironically, being a single father who successfully fought for custody has made me more attractive to potential students and business partners, not less. I'm also dating someone new, an elementary school teacher named Maria, who thinks my story is inspiring rather than embarrassing. She likes that I'm a good father, that I fought for my son, that I didn't just roll over and accept whatever settlement my ex-wife offered. She likes that I'm patient and strategic and calm under pressure. She likes that I'm content with a simple life that's built on honesty and loyalty rather than ambition and status. Maria makes about the same modest income that I do, and we're perfectly happy planning dates that cost $20 instead of $200. We talk about our students, our families, our hopes for the future. We don't need expensive restaurants or luxury vacations to feel connected to each other. We've both learned that real compatibility isn't about impressing each other. It's about enjoying each other's company while building something real together. Amelie now resides by herself in a modest apartment, grappling with the challenge of stretching her diminished paycheck to cover her expenses after sending support to 2 separate families. Since the affair came to light, her professional life has hit a standstill, opportunities drying up as whispers of her past circulate. Forming new connections has proven difficult. The rumors about her actions seem to follow her, casting a shadow over her attempts to start fresh. Alex shared with me that she carries a heavy air of melancholy these days, her conversations often tinged with remorse. She speaks of the choices that led her here, her voice heavy with regret, longing for the days when life felt simpler, before everything unraveled. The weight of her decisions seems to linger in every corner of her small apartment, a constant reminder of what's been lost. Alex says she spends evenings alone, reflecting on the past, her once vibrant spirit dulled by the consequences of her actions. She wonders aloud if she could have chosen differently, if she could have salvaged the life she had. The isolation is palpable, not just in her social life but in the way she's had to rebuild from scratch. I can't help but feel a pang of sympathy, imagining her staring out her window, yearning for a chance to rewind time, to reclaim the warmth of the life she once knew. But there's no going back. The life she thought she wanted, the excitement, the status, the man who could give her more than I ever could, turned out to be an illusion. Robert wasn't her salvation, he was her destruction. The choices she made in pursuit of something better ended up costing her everything that was actually good in her life. The last time I saw Emily was at Alex's soccer tournament last month. She looked older, tired, like someone who had been carrying a heavy weight for too long. She watched our son play from the opposite side of the field, probably thinking about what she had given up, what she had lost, what she would never get back. I felt sorry for her in a way. Not because she didn't deserve the consequences of her choices, but because she had thrown away something real for something that was never going to last. She had traded a partnership that could have grown stronger over time for a fantasy that was doomed to disappoint her. But I didn't feel sorry enough to forgive her, or to wish things had turned out differently. Because in losing her, I had found something more valuable than the marriage I thought I had. I had found my own strength, my own worth, my own ability to fight for what mattered to me. I learned that being patient doesn't mean being passive, that being loyal doesn't mean being a doormat, that being content doesn't mean accepting less than you deserve. I learned that sometimes the person you think you know best is the person who's been lying to you the longest. I learned that love without respect is just dependency, and that trust, once broken, can never be fully repaired. Most importantly, I learned that my worth as a man, as a father, as a partner, has nothing to do with how much money I make or how impressive my job title sounds. It has everything to do with my character, my integrity, my willingness to fight for the people I love. Emily thought she was trading up when she chose Robert over me. What she actually did was trade away the only man who loved her for who she was instead of what she could provide. She traded security for excitement, loyalty for passion, reality for fantasy. And in the end, she discovered that excitement fades, passion burns out, and fantasies always disappoint when they collide with real life. I used to think that being enough meant providing everything someone needed. Now I know that for the right person, you don't have to be more than who you are. You just have to be exactly who you are, consistently and honestly. And for the wrong person, nothing you do will ever be enough.